in studio. And for more on this, we bring on our good friend from the Detroit Free Press, Lions beat writer, our favorite guy, Dave Birkett, at a swim meet. Dave, you the man. What'd you think of Calvin, what he told us yesterday?
Swim class.
Swim class.
Not a swim meet. Yeah.
Sorry, man.
See, you're always trying to get better, Dave. I like it. You're out there. You're
I know, right?
Thanks for coming out of the pool. Thanks for giving your
Keep your shirt on.
I'm going to get away from the little kids area so that way it's a little less noisy for you. But
look at that. Humble, too. Not even afraid to say you got to start in the shallow end. There you go. That's
right.
why you're a guy, Dave.
Anyways,
that's right. Sorry.
I hope the background noise stays down for you.
But
look,
you're good.
Hey, I think, it's no surprise, right, that Calvin, still has some hard feelings, I guess, towards the Lions, right? That, the situation hasn't been resolved. But I can tell you that, let's just say an offer had been communicated. I mean, I think there's plenty of hope that remains for them to resolve this. It's just about working out the financials. I mean, I said that on Twitter a month ago, that he will be back in the family at some point. They have to work out the financials for it. I know the Lions are, let's just say they're willing to give him some money, and it just has to be under their terms. And I don't know that Calvin likes the terms.
Hey, how about, and I kind of asked him about Barry as well. I kind of threw it all in. Did they ever settle with Barry?
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact same thing. Look, you think Barry works for free or he makes all these appearances for free? No. Barry's making lots of money.
Yeah.
He's making a whole lot of money from the Lions, and Kelvin will make a whole lot of money from the Lions at some point, too. It's just, Kelvin doesn't need it. He's got his own business. He made $120 million or whatever he made during his playing career. So Kelvin still, look, I think Kelvin, he realizes that the Lions are always going to be a part of him. So some of the hard feelings that were there, early on, post-retirement, some of those have gone by the wayside. But, Kelvin's a very principled guy. He has beliefs. He thought he was done wrong in terms of the Lions asking for money back. I tend to agree with him. I don't think they should have come after his money. That's just not the way things work in the NFL. And in order for the Lions to make it right, it's, as he told me a couple of years ago, they're going to have to go, put some money back in his pockets. And that's still what needs to be resolved.
Dave, do you think that, the way that players are handling their unhappiness with a team now versus the way that it was handled even just a few years ago? Let's forget back when Calvin Johnson retired. But do you think if Calvin would have made such a stink like Julio did or Aaron Rodgers, or do you think it would have been different for Calvin? You think he would have gotten the trade?
I don't know about the trade. I think that the trade stuff that came up, after he was retired. Look, the bottom line, Calvin, certainly he had frustrations with the organization, but his body was given out on him. He's told me multiple times, right, he was going to retire after the 2014 season when the Lions made the playoffs. He didn't retire then. His dad talked him into staying. So he played one more year, the 2015 season. Obviously, that was a bad year for everyone. And then he walked away from the game. And I think some of his unhappiness or his desire to go elsewhere, while he may have had it, that wasn't the reason why he left. So, it's a different time now. Players certainly seem to have a little more, the NBA influence has rubbed off on the NFL quite a bit. And so maybe Kelvin would have handled it different. But I don't think his body, guys, I've said this in when I gave the Hall of Fame presentation to the voters on Kelvin. Sean Jefferson told me 3 years before Kelvin retired, I saw him at the combine and he was like, the big fella's got 3 years left. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, Kelvin was coming off like a 1,600-yard season at the time. And he was like, you don't see what his body goes through every day in practice. And so I think that was the biggest thing and the biggest reaon why he retired.
Dave Birkett, Free Press beat writer, always on, no matter if it's at the pool, at Allen Park, and Ford Field. He's always
It's a great
around.
backdrop today, by the way.
Sure.
Great backdrop.
Yeah, it's a great backdrop.
A couple people got out of the pool by my last spot, so I figured I'd move over here for you. So.
I love it.
We don't want you getting sued.
What the one thing that the big thing about you mentioned about the principle of Calvin, and I think at the end of the interview that we did, it's about the players and stuff like that. And you could, to me, how much, I guess, just getting things right, to have Barry Sanders back, to have Calvin, to have everything, how and you said it's financial. Is there anything else other than the finances? But is this, I guess, because Calvin had glowing reviews for Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, as a teammate and what they're going to bring. Is this all part of the culture process that, as things are getting better, then we will see this more or less resolved? And is this a before the season thing, or is this going to carry on as it goes on, or does the team have an onus to get this as a priority?
Yeah, that's a good question, D-Mac. I mean, look, Kelvin's going into the Hall of Fame in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it is. So you would have to think that if the organization is going to make it a priority, they would do it here in the next 6 or 8 weeks, right? And get him in the family before he goes in. I know the organization will be a part of his Hall of Fame celebrations. They will have people down in Canton, and that's what I mean. That the relationship has been repaired to a certain extent, but they're never going to be wholly compatible until the financial component is resolved. And I know Kelvin feels strongly about that. Certainly there could be other things at play there, but I will say that at least there is an open line of communication, or has been, between Kelvin and Sheila Fordhamp, and so maybe that's at least why some of these things have started to trend in the right direction.
Hey Dave, this Lions team, let's face it, they're not probably looked at as royalty in the NFL, although they're owned by the Ford and the Firestone families, royalty families. Why would they do that, what they did to Barry and to Calvin? It's a bad look. You got Jim Irsay in Indianapolis giving Andrew Luck his entire contract when he retired. I mean, I don't get it, man. It's a terrible look. How do they expect anybody to want to come play here?
I mean, that's a question that I've asked and I've never got an answer for, right? Like, is it an organizational philosophy to want to recoup that money, and why? And no one would answer, the why part of that when after Kelvin's retirement, or even in the years since when I've asked. And maybe it just, maybe it goes back to Barry, right? Barry was the best player in franchise history.
Yes.
And if you take the money from Barry, maybe it stands to reason that you do the same for others, or you try to do the same for others. But again, I think you have to realize it was a different time then than it is now. And the Kelvin thing, look, I know there's a lot of people out there. I've had this discussion with my neighbors all the time. I got a neighbor named Mark who he's like, Kelvin, that's his, he owed the money, right? Like we argue about this all the time. Right. This is the Lions money. He didn't earn it.
Quit.
No, the way it is in the NFL, he earned it. That's what signing bonuses are. That's how players view it, no matter how it's written into the contract. And so, and you look at the history of it. You mentioned Andrew Luck, a lot of other guys that have retired that get to keep their money. So it's not going to be resolved until that happens.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. Hey, Dave.
It is. I don't like the look from the Lions standpoint. Yeah. Maybe Sheila will change that going forward.
She better.
That's where this stands. And to me, if you're going to change the culture, and if you're talking about it and bringing people in and doing that, this is exactly part of it. Because Maz brought up the great point. It's not about just doing right by the guys that have put the blood, sweat, and tears in for your organization. It's for guys that want to come here to the new thing and see how they are treated.
Yeah.
My question to you, Dave, and obviously the NFLPA places heavy restrictions on non-vaccinated players. We're going to cover this later on, but have you heard anything back out of any of the Lions guys, or any scuttlebutt about around? Is this really going to, stick to it? Because we're going to show some clips later on Cole Beasly from the Bills. And
the way it is, if you don't get a vaccination, it might as well you're in COVID. You're in 2020.
Yeah. Is there anything as far as any of the Lions guys, or your personal opinions, is this bigger than what it seems like, as a personal choice?
Yeah. No. All right. One other thing on the Kelvin thing first. Maybe there's hope because of the way they handled Matthew Stafford. I guess I should just probably add that,
Good
right?
point.
Stafford wanted out. They gave him his wish without much, argument, and now they're on to a new direction. So maybe that's there.
And to your point, Dave, before you answer that, is that was a Sheila move.
Yeah.
Right. So we can. This is Sheila time.
She's already
now.
ahead. She's already ahead.
Moving, but the Barry stuff and all that other, you see the why that it is, and explain. Okay, time frames. So maybe that'll explain what'll get done. But how about the NFLPA coming out with the vaccination?
Look, the NFLPA, they made this agreement, and Beasley's comments, I know you said you're going to play him later. He obviously wasn't happy, so they obviously didn't consult with the bulk of their playing base, or a large portion of it at least. But no, these rules are here, and look, from the NFL standpoint, they're trying to encourage players to get vaccinated without mandating it, and this is a big part of it, right? That they want to, if they can force players' hands by putting these rules in place and these restrictions in place, that maybe the pressure gets applied, organizationally, in the locker room. Hey, look, we need you in these meetings. Hey, if you want to be with your teammates on the road, hey, all these little things that go on. So I think it's all part of, the NFL and the NFLPA's push to get more people to get vaccinated, because right now I don't know exactly what the Lions are. Dan Campbell wouldn't say the other week, but the reports are there's like 2 teams that are around the 80% mark, 2 or 3 teams, and most others are around the 50% mark. So
wow.
There's a lot of work still to be done right now with the Lions and a lot of teams. When a key Lions player like Taylor Decker comes out and says he's not going to get vaccinated, there's a big line in the locker room of maybe players falling on one side that won't get vaccinated, and others who will, that are comfortable with the vaccination.
Dave, do you think though at some point everybody's HIPAA rights is being violated by media asking, why aren't you vaccinated?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to get vaccinated? Have you been vaccinated? I mean,
that's
at
another
some
embarrassing
point,
thing.
Isn't it just like, and why can't a player just say that's not anybody else's concern? My medical is not anybody's. And the same with the NFLPA. Like, how can you enforce this and shame people that don't want to do this?
Well, look, I have had these discussions with people in the past on email, Twitter, in person, whatever. HIPAA only applies to doctors, so it doesn't apply to media. So, media can ask whatever they want, and players can say yes or no if they want. A player can say, hey, I'm not answering that, and that's fine. It's not like, I'm about to go arm wrestle Taylor Decker and say, hey, tell me what's going on here. But I mean, look, the reality is, if you see a player wearing a mask, if you ask their teammates in the locker room, you'll find out who's vaccinated and who's not. So, this is just such a hot button topic, issue for a lot of people in the world today, of the vaccination, whether they should, whether they shouldn't. And it's no surprise that it seeped into professional sports. But I think when you look at the NBA playoffs, right? If Chris Paul is going to miss time or could miss time because of, COVID-19, mm-hmm. I mean, maybe you're doing your teammates a disservice too by not getting the vaccination. Maybe there's a selfish component that people in the locker room would, try to encourage you to do that too, because you miss a key game, some time, maybe that impacts, what happens in the locker room as well.
But I mean, there's plenty of cases where people get the vaccine and then still get COVID.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where I feel like it's very unfair, in my opinion, and to force a player to have to basically get this, or they're going to be shamed and scrutinized.
Yeah,
I'll get into this, but
hey,
the key point, Dave, is what you said at the beginning. Looks like the NFLPA, which doesn't have the greatest reputation, Players Association didn't talk to the players. That's the whole miscommunication here. And
D-Mag, it, right? I mean, that group is supposed to look out for all the players, and maybe they feel they are, right? Maybe that's how they feel they're going to keep their group of players healthiest, is by encouraging vaccinations. So, but when you have a large portion of the player base that doesn't want to get vaccinated, that's up to the NFLPA to fight harder for that, on behalf of those players.
Right.
And so I think Cole's comments and his anger towards the Players Association, I understand why he has that.
And he wasn't alone, I'm sure.
Hey, how are the Lions going to handle the fans coming into the stadium? Because Buffalo is not letting anyone in unless you show proof that you are fully vaccinated. What happens here in Detroit?
Yeah, yet to be determined. Look, I mean, I think it'll probably end up being like a lot of places, right? You're supposed to wear a mask if you're not vaccinated, but how are you checking that? I don't know. Now, the closer you are to players, maybe there is a little... maybe that, there's a sticky, line there too, because, look, in training camp, they can keep players. I forget what the distance is, right? They have to keep fans 20 yards away or whatever it may be.
That's what it is.
If you're sitting in the front row of a stadium and around the, the tunnel, like there could be, contact there with players, or maybe you're close enough that it could be an issue. So I think that's something that the Lions and other NFL teams have to find a solution to before the season opens.
Hey, last question before we let you get back in the pool, Dave. Tell
no
us
pool
about
for me.
Yeah, I know.
Listen, water wings.
Listen,
not today.
The circus, man, is still in town. Sean McVay backpedaling, complimenting Stafford, and then coming back and saying, look, I didn't mean anything against Goff. What's your whole take on the three-ring circus that is those three guys?
I heard a great quote the other day, just since you mentioned the circus. It was, if you're sick of the clowns, sometimes you got to leave the circus, right? You ask yourself why you're still in the circus. Look, I mean, Sean McVay's comments sure seem to be a little bit of a shot at Jared Goff, right? And it's no secret that Sean and Jared Goff weren't seeing eye to eye at the end. And it's cool. They go, they're separate ways. It happens in sports all the time. Look at Andy Reid, right? I think his comments about LaShawn McCoy were, that's how you handle it, right? Hey, good luck to you. I wish you well. We're on to, the Belichick line. We're on to whatever's next. But Goff, in talking to Brad Holmes this week, look, Jared Goff is a guy that is going to be on a mission this year. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Holmes said it's like nothing he saw in L.A., that, he's motivated, and the ownership that he's taken, the leadership that he's shown, I think that's something that a lot of fans in LA would be surprised about, just how up front, Jared Goff has been. And so from that standpoint, maybe the Lions, maybe they get a little something in Jared Goff that people weren't expecting, because Jared certainly seems to be motivated by Sean and what happened in LA. And guys, as well as I do, this is not going to be the end of it. The Lions play the Rams, of course, so this subject is going to come up again. Yeah.
Can't wait, man.
Well, we showed the Madden video yesterday of Akuda picking off Stafford.
Yep.
So we're all excited. I mean, that could be our Super Bowl. Who knows? But we'll take it. And to that point, Dave, did you notice that from, as a player, when you are wanted, right? When you, for me, I'm speaking as Darren McCarty. My motivation is I look around my dressing room and know that those guys needed me, and, their appreciation. The fact Jared Goff, I think it's left a situation, and both Matthew Stafford, too, they're going to situations where they're wanted, right? Did you notice that even in OTAs, just the vibe or a different, I'm looking for, was there a different energy or something that these aren't just words that maybe the OTAs, you saw something of what Brad Holmes was saying?
Yeah, and, I wrote about this a little bit early on, just talking to some of Jared's old coaches, because he does, and maybe it's just because he's California, right? He's got this sort of laid-back reputation.
California cool.
Right? California cool. But, his coaches said that, they pointed to Cal, right? In his first year, they were 1-11, and he by the time he left, they won 8 games in a bowl. And in L.A., they were, I think he went 0-7 during his starts as a rookie, and they were a bad team, his rookie year. And so he's played at his best when he's had this chip. And look, the other part is, when Jared came to LA, I mean, he's a rookie, and sometimes it takes you time to find your footing and be a leader and do some of the things that more tested vets do. And so maybe that's part of it too, just him maturing a little bit. But I did. He was out there talking with teammates, the off-season workouts that he's led in California with some of his receivers. It's sort of like Matthew Stafford early on, where people were like, yeah, this guy's not vocal enough. But behind the scenes and in the locker room, they know. And so I think Jared deserves the benefit of the doubt until we hear otherwise.
Hey,
I threw a freaking thing out here months ago that said, you watch, Jared Goff will be as impactful to this organization as Brendan Shanahan was to ours.
I hope you're right.
Wow.
No, and I'm saying that, and you're telling me that it's put it in motion. So thank you, Berkey. As always, buddy. As always.
They got to win. They got to win like you guys used to win for that to happen.
No,
but you're right.
It's setting the culture, though, right? And I guess the expectation isn't to come in and win a championship, but it's setting the culture, and it's that leadership to what you said. And when guys have chips on their shoulder and they go to where they're appreciated, that's when great things can happen. I'm permeating over here. Thanks, buddy.
Woo-hoo.
You got it. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
we'll see you at
Dave.
minicamp. Dave Birkett, Detroit Free Press, Lions beat writer, our good friend of the show.